We're continuing with our discussions of the artists that have done paintings at El Farol, and today we have Roland Van Loon. Roland Van Loon, how long have we known each other, Roland?
Well, around 18 years, 16 years, maybe that long.
And you've put some beautiful art on the walls of El Farol. You've also hung some paintings on the walls. And you started because of your love of some of the dancing and some of the entertainment that was happening here in El Farol, namely flamenco, am I correct?
That's right. Basically, I'd had a broken heart a long time ago. I had a divorce and I came to Santa Fe, and when I saw flamenco dancing, I realized that these people had something I didn't. And what they had some passion. And at that moment, when I recognized their passion, I asked myself, where did my passion go? And I realized that it kind of went with that broken heart I had after my divorce.
In fact, you weren't doing much painting when you got to Santa Fe.
Yeah. And basically, painting became too painful for me because I'd been used to painting in a studio where I heard all my children running around. I delivered my children in this house, and all of a sudden the house was empty back in Hilo, Hawaii. Yeah. And it was like a ghost in there, and I had to leave. And I had to put the painting down and kind of connect with a learning process. I had to learn something new, so I got into clay instead for a while.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, let's talk about Hilo in Hawaii and where you. Is that where you first? Is that where you were born?
Actually, because of my mixture and a military, a father, and so on, I was actually born in Holland.
You were born in Holland?
I was actually born in Holland.
That's new to me.
Yeah, I have a last name of Van Loon because one of my grandfathers was adopted by a Dutch family, and it was really not a family. It's kind of like the Indian stories where they just took on names and so on.
Right.
And but my story is a little different than Stan's because I never stayed connected to my family. I never knew my dad. I never knew any of my relatives and so on.
So how long were you in Holland, you say?
Yeah, I lived there as a child, and when I was first born, and then we went back to the islands.
You went back with your mother?
With my mom.
Right. You went back to Hawaii and to Hilo?
Actually, we went back to Oahu and went back to Waianae, the leeward side of Oahu.
Yes.
I graduated from a school called Waianae High School in 1974.
Were you an artist early on in your boyhood?
In my childhood, I was an artist all of my life, I guess. My mother was a jeweler, artist type. I was inspired by my mother.
Were you recognized as an artist by teachers and other people?
Actually, I thought of myself as an artist like when I was in first grade, and I entered a contest and I got second place, and I was actually experienced feeling wounded that I didn't get first place. But when I was in 5th grade, I actually won the Dental Week poster contest in the island. And
the Dental Week
the poster? Dental Week poster. I did a drawing of Snoopy on the airplane made out of a crest tube and was shooting the Red Baron down while he was attacking the tube.
I love that.
You know, which was a castle, all this stuff. Anyway, the school I attended, the merit game and all that, and I got an award when I was in 5th grade. So at 5th grade, I knew I was an artist.
How long after that, all of those contests that you won and almost won, did you start getting involved with individuals that were a little bit, not a little bit, but very well known in art?
There were some minor incidences where my art teacher in high school would try to steer me like, here's something after school, why don't you do this type of thing. And I met artists that way. But my biggest one was as a senior in high school, visiting the community college.
Where your mother was taking classes?
Yeah, where my mother was taking classes, and I looked in the, because I've always been interested in building too, and so there was this theater being built, and I was checking out the progress, and I saw an old man on a scaffold sitting in the foyer,
That's the story.
getting ready to do something. I asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm gonna paint this whole wall." And the wall was 100 feet long and 27 feet high. And he was on a scaffold, and he was probably around 76.
Wow.
And I just looked at him and I said, "You're gonna paint that whole wall? Well, I'm an artist, and you're gonna need some help." And he said, "Well, I have help already, and and all that." But I ended up going to this class after this meeting, and which was this art class I was taking as well.
Correct.
And it was a Halloween day, and everybody was dressed in their Halloween costumes, ready to have a party. And I was so excited about this meeting this artist that I went to this really beautiful teacher of mine, Alan Bromley, and I mentioned, there's this guy doing a mural. His name is Jean Charlot. And she said, "Oh, Mr. Charlot is starting his mural today." And she marched us to the theater. But she was so beautiful, red-headed, and marching in front of us, and I thought, but this woman's trying to take the credit for remembering this artist. So as soon as we get to the theater, I made sure she wasn't going to take the limelight off of me. So I stepped forward and climbed up the scaffold next to Mr. Charlot, smoking a cigar. And I said, "Well, this is the artist." And I took over, and I said, "This is my class." I brought them all over, and I was kind of being a comedian. But the cigar was really bothering Mr. Charlot. And I was playing around with him, and finally he asked if I could please get down, and I taunted him, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to get down unless you let me help you." And finally he said, "Okay then, go down in that room and ask this lady what to do." And when I went down, my art teacher looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, Ro, you have no idea what just happened."
I think it's time that you gave us a little history of Jean Charlot.
Well, this Jean Charlot, in the the 1940s and so on, there was a lot of political things going on in Mexico, and there was an artist named Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo.
Yes.
And they were getting ready to do murals on the wall, except no one really knew the technique of fresco painting. Well, Mr. Charlot's father had been a professor at the University of Paris, an archaeologist, and he kind of studied the fresco painting.
That's right.
And anyway, he got his son Jean to get interested in. Jean Charlot actually helped Diego Rivera. They were colleagues on actually putting the very first fresco mural on one of the walls in Mexico City. Fresco meaning painting in wet plaster.
Yes.
And so that's how Jean Charlot and Diego Rivera were connected.
And I think it was at the University of Mexico.
Yeah, and I actually glorified all that in a way in my stories that I had told. And I actually went back to Hawaii maybe 2 years ago. And there's at the University of Hawaii, there's a kind of a museum or a place that they store all the records of Jean Charlot's work, because he was a writer. Mm-hmm. Because Jean Charlot painted and wrote, he's kind of known as a writer too, and but he's undershadowed in some ways just because of the time that he put in there. But I found out that Diego Rivera and Jean Charlot actually bucked heads at some point, and so they weren't like best friends, let's put it that way, but they did work together and all this kind of stuff.
I think Diego Rivera butted heads with a whole lot of people, including his paramour, Frida Kahlo.
It's okay, it kind of comes with the territory.
I think he also butted heads when he put a fresco in
yes, that's right.
In
Lincoln
Detroit.
Center. Yes.
In Detroit, and he got a call there.
No,
Mr.
That's
Van.
okay. That's okay. Felt something vibrating.
Could have been your cell phone.
That's right. Anyway,
what was I? I was thinking of Diego Rivera butting heads with the Ford family in Detroit when he put a fresco on one of the buildings, and he didn't show it until he took the canvas off of his of his masterpiece, and it was a little bit anti-American, I think it was.
Yes.
So he butted heads with a few people.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. So let's talk about your stay in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, and your art. What are you doing as far as your art here in Santa Fe?
Well, I am going deeper. Going deeper is it's a saying, you know. What is deep? What is depth? I think, like for me, my art has been a reflection of experiences that I've had, and
I have one thing to say because I've gotten to know you rather well, if I may say so, and I think you and I share something, and that is emotion. If I would have had talent to be an artist, I think that I would have brought emotion to that, because I've seen you at every different level of emotions, from the biggest high to some of the biggest lows that a human being can experience. We've shared laughter together, and I think we've shared tears together, and so I think I know what that means, going deeper and things of that sort. So please go on.
Well, I think there's this, you know, people talk about it kind of passe at this point, but basically fear and love, and how we are scared of really seeing who we truly are, and this kind of the nature of that, and there are reasons for it, and then we go through a process of healing and coming back after we're healed, and coming back stronger and doing what we're doing. Well, that plight is there as well in my work and in my life, and it's been a process. It's been a process. I need the art. I need it. I have to do it. And when I don't do it, I notice that I lose a little bit of my identity, and I don't feel good. And when I'm involved, I have children and other responsibilities sometimes that make it so that I can't paint every minute all the time.
Right.
When I do paint, I feel so connected.
You've used flamenco as a reason to do your art. But I've also seen you do a lot of things that you have put into that art that are very Spanish, very Hispanic. Like you'll have an artist, you'll have a flamenco dancer in there, and somewhere in there there'll be a guitarist, somewhere in there there'll be a bull, somewhere in there there'll be the iconic skeleton that you see in some of the Mexican art. That just comes to you?
It does. You see, I think there's a concept of a universal pool of knowledge and information and insight and images, and I think on some level I access that pool, jump in, and then my favorite things are probably Spanish artists. You know, my favorite artists all of my life have been like El Greco, Picasso, you know, Salvador Dali, Miro, and so on. And I've used my art as an exploration, like to find out why I'm drawn to these things, and if I'm drawn to them unconsciously, then once I put it down, then I look at it afterwards and try to dissect it and go, what is that symbol? Why am I drawn to that? Why do they appear in my images? And it's actually after doing them that I figured out why they started to appear. But ultimately, this the first word that I used was passion, that I saw in the flamenco dancers. The bull in my paintings represents that passion.
Okay.
And it's actually a passion that people are afraid of. So therefore they want to conquer it, because with passion so many terrible things have happened as well. There's been good things but also bad things, but because of our humanity we tend to focus on the negative a lot, which I know is the drawback. of our culture, that we focus too much on the negative and we don't see the purpose of the negative. You know, and the purpose of the negative is just to personify the positive so that we can appreciate what's good. And so my bull in my painting and the different symbols in my paintings are really references to the good, the joy, and the joy also being a kind of a passion.
Right.
You know, and
what does the skeleton signify? You know, sort of like the Day of the Dead, as far as the Mexican culture is concerned.
That's really interesting, you know, because my very first flamenco painting I did was I listened to the music, and one of the people said that they sing songs that are like 600 years old.
That's right.
And it came from gypsies, etc., etc. And I thought to myself, man, whoever wrote that song 600 years ago must be rolling around in his grave to see people still singing these songs, is what I thought. Okay. And then I thought, what symbol could I use to represent the ancestor? And that's why I painted the skeleton. I had no idea that it paralleled the whole like a Mexican Day of the Dead thing. But once I found out that it did parallel that, I realized that, wow, there again, I drew off of that pool again. It was just it's a universal symbol for a lot of things.
That is absolutely terrific. I really like that story.
You do?
I really do.
It's true. That's what I thought.
So you obviously are a painter and you are in business. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how in the world would they do that?
Just go to my website, RolandVanLoon.net. Come to my studio, my gallery, my home on 612 Agua Fria, right here in town. My painting has blessed me so much that people actually like my work a lot. They say that my work embodies a lot of joy that they like to have around them.
I do have one other question. How come there's always in your flamenco dinner, in your flamenco shows, one of the flamenco dancers, one of the female flamenco dancers, you know what I'm going to ask you?
Like who are they?
No. Oh. How come one is always a redhead?
Oh, there was a waitress named Claudia who was a flamenco dancer who actually facilitated mine and your meeting.
Is that right?
That's right. And
I didn't want to put you in a spot.
Yeah, that's okay. And the black-haired woman, her name was Lisa Foreman.
Oh,
turns out that everybody is from somewhere else. So it turned out that Claudia really wasn't Spanish. And
no,
she was from the East Coast. I think she's Yugoslavia or something. What was her national? Anyway,
it was some sort of Eastern European country.
Eastern European.
But she became, both Lisa and Claudia became flamenco dancers.
That's right.
And very good flamenco dancers.
Yep.
So during the time they would do a little dance and perhaps serve a paella and a tapa, and then go back to dancing, and you were right in the mix of all of that.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself. I had a girlfriend, and when I saw them dance, I stood up and I was clapping, and my girlfriend Kathy Rowe was pulling my shirt. Come sit down, Tiger. You know?
And with that, I think we'll end this interview. Be careful.